about the wines that are an expression of all of the diversity that Sicily offers. And so, yeah, thanks for joining.
Perfect.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Just one thing, while Kunal is just switching on the presentation and we'll talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, just for all the people who've been a part of these sessions, you all know the drill. It's very simple. Melissa would be talking about it. Would earnest request to you all that whatever questions you have, please write it on the chat box, because in between, if we break, there's a momentum that breaks, and then Melissa may want to tell something very important, then she forgets in between because we break the momentum. Having said that, everybody's questions will be taken. We would ask them later, and then Melissa will be there to answer. Melissa, just one thing, Kunal and myself may request you to stop in between, just to make our people understand a few things that may be very, very obvious to us from the wine world, but for a lot of us, it may not be very simple to understand. So in case you do that, please just be okay with that.
Okay, sure. No problem.
Excellent. We've got some lovely people, I see. Great. Kunal?
Okay.
All right. So Melissa, would you like me to share the PPT?
Sure, yeah.
The document? Okay, I'm doing that now. All right. Okay, it's all yours, Melissa. Please go ahead.
Okay, so Kunal asked me to start just talking a little bit to begin with about Sicily in general and the terroir here. So Sicily, as you know, is a large island in the Mediterranean. So we have Mediterranean climate. It's off of the toe of the boot of Italy. And
Melissa, can I just interrupt you quickly? Just one thing. I'm sorry to do that. One quick thing that I forgot to tell my audience during the introduction is that Melissa has been a sommelier in the United States, and she has worked at one of the best restaurants and hotels over there. So it is this talk is actually coming from the point of view of a sommelier as well, not just a winemaker or a person who works in the wine industry. So sorry to interrupt you there, but I think that was important for our audience to know that. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah, as I was saying, Sicily is a large island in the center of the Mediterranean, and being between in the center of the Mediterranean between a lot of countries that has a long history of being in important trade routes. And with, trade brings a lot of cultural diversity and exchanges. And so throughout Sicily's history, it has its own really unique history and diversity, different from any other region on the mainland of Italy. And that's because of its unique position in the Mediterranean and it being on major trade routes. So the viticultural and olive making traditions go back to Phoenician times. And then in Sicily, we had also Greeks, and they've left some really beautiful sites here, temples that you could go visit if you ever come to Sicily. They're not that far from us. And then the Romans, and then the history goes on and on. We had Arab domination, Normandy, and Spanish, and each culture that came into Sicily, they didn't just come to conquer it and pillar and then leave. They came and they brought something and they stayed. A lot of the diversity that you find in Sicily today, you can see it in the food even. For example, all of the citrus and the nuts and the sweet and sour agrodolce, what we say here in Sicily, it was brought by the Arab culture. And so you can find a lot of diversity in the culture, in the food and the flavors, and I think also in the wines. And Sicily has a really beautiful climate. It's a Mediterranean climate. We have 3 different oceans. So we have the Mediterranean Ocean that's closest to where we are on the southern part of the island. And then on the northern part, we have the Terrier Sea. And then on the side that is closest to the mainland of Italy, we have the Ionic Sea. So the meeting of these 3 seas give a lot of different bring a lot of different air movement and wind to the island. And that's really important for quality viticulture, is the many different winds that we have on the island. And Sicilians have a lot of different names for the winds too. And we have a very sunny, warm climate and a dry climate. So it's great for organic viticulture and high quality winemaking. Then Kunal was asking me about the Mount Etna, which is a large active volcano on the eastern side of Sicily, not that far from Catania. And actually, Sicily is all volcanic of origin. It was all at one time a very large volcano. And there's actually many small volcanoes under the water around the island. So we have the large Etna, but we have many other volcanoes. And the soil is so unique here because of the volcanic origin of the island. So on the eastern side of Sicily, we have the active Mount Etna, and the soil is fresh volcanic soil, and it gives a lot of minerality to the wines. Where we are on the western side of Sicily, not so far from Palermo, we have a soil that is old volcanic matter, very calcium rich, and also some clay mixed soil. And this old volcanic soil is called tuff, and this also imparts a really unique character to the wines. So moving on to our story. So Di Giovanna is our family name. We're a family owned and managed winery. I think you can see from the picture here, we see 2 Sicilian gentlemen here. One is Günther and the other is Klaus. Günther is my husband and Klaus, my brother-in-law. They were raised on the family vineyard. So their first vintages, picking grapes and harvesting, were from the time that they're 6 and 8 years old. So they've been working with their vineyards for about a little over 40 years now. And we're located in the western part of Sicily, like I said, not so far from Palermo, and we're in the mountains. So it's a really unique zone. We're in the high hillsides and the mountains between Agrigento and Palermo, these 2 provinces of Agrigento and Palermo. And my father-in-law, their father, began this idea to make family wines. Because before that, in Sicily, everyone had their own vineyards, but they were selling their grapes to the local co-op. And so they would harvest their grapes and they would take them to the co-op and sell them by the kilo. And then the co-op would make the wines for everyone that was a member of the co-op. And this started slowly to change in the 80s when Sicily moved towards a quality revolution in the late 80s. And a lot of the families thought about replanting their vineyards and deciding to make their own wine. And most of this was inspired by their travels to France or to Piedmont or to Tuscany, where there was already a really long history of quality winemaking and viticulture. So my father-in-law, he reconsolidated the family vineyards that were all divided between his sisters, his brother, and different family members. And he slowly consolidated and then replanted all of the vineyards until what we have today is 65 hectares of vineyards. And we have 2/3 planted with native Sicilian grapes and 1/3 planted with international grapes like Chardonnay, Syrah, and Merlot. Are we okay with translation?
We okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So yeah, you can see there, that's the property, 100 hectares total, because a lot of it is just open fields where the sheep graze, and forest. And then And then we have olive groves as well, because we make extra virgin olive oil. So moving on to the estate and the vineyards. So here in the photo, we have the beautiful Paradiso vineyard, and Italian for paradise. And this is one of the 5 family vineyards. This is the largest vineyard, and it's located in the small DOC of Contessa Entellina, which is in the province of Palermo. And you can see there's vineyards and also olive trees. So we have our olive groves there, and also most of our plantings of Novella Mascalese, a native Sicilian grape, and Grillo. We have Syrah planted there, and also Nero d'Avola. So there's 3 of the family vineyards are in Contessa Entellina. And then we have other 2 vineyards in the small DOC of Sambuca di Sicilia, and this is in the province of Agrigento. So we're just basically between these 2 provinces, and you can see from here we're on the high hillsides, and then as you go over to Sambuca di Sicilia vineyards, where you can see we're in the mountains there.
And just for our audience, it's as Melissa was just mentioning that some of these vineyards are on. First of all, you can see how sunny it is. Obviously, that helps. Sicily is a wonderful island, and it's sunny most of the time.
Yeah.
But a lot of effect of how the grapes are grown, the ripeness of the grape depends really on what kind of slope they are and in which direction the slopes are facing. So in the northern hemisphere, you'll generally find the best vineyards or the better sites facing towards the equator, that is south or southeast. And you can see from this picture itself that the vineyards are on the slope, so that really helps and aids in the ripening, which maybe perhaps in Sicily is not such a big issue because it's still sunny, but the cooler climates, especially North France, and maybe some parts of Germany, face that sort of an issue. But this looks very sunny, Melissa.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very sunny, warm Mediterranean climate. We have 4 seasons. So in the winter, it's unusual to get snow, but we can get a little snow dusting in the winter. We did this year. It was really beautiful. And spring comes pretty early. Usually by the middle of February, the trees are flowering. And then we have the bud break usually in early March. So yeah, we have quite a long growing season, and that's thanks to the warm climate and the sun. The temperatures aren't as extremely hot as you can imagine because we have cool nights and we have a quite windy climate. So the medium temperature, it can be even in the mid 30s, low to mid 30s, even in the hottest months like June and July. We usually start our harvest by the middle of August, middle to late August, and we're harvesting through until early to mid October with the red varieties. So you can see in this photo here that the color of the soil is quite yellow, and this is the soil that I was talking about. It's the old volcanic soil called tuff, and that's what gives the grapes from these vineyards such a unique flavor profile that you'll find then in the wines. Okay, so this is the Gerbino vineyard. This is the oldest vineyard in the Di Giovanna family. It was originally planted in the 1860s, and the little house there you see is a country house that was built by their great grandfather, and the vineyards surround it. And so that was a house from the 1860s. And today we have this area surrounded by vineyards, and it's in the zone of Contessa Entellina, right next to the Paradiso vineyard. And the grapes in the vines in this photo are Chardonnay, which is really how the story of the family winery began with Chardonnay. And this is another photo of Gerbino. This is a photo from full summer. And then here we have Machina. This is the third vineyard in Contessa Antolina that is planted with Catarato, a native Sicilian white grape, Nardavola, Syrah, and some Nerilla Muscalese. And these are the youngest vineyards that we have, about 3 to 5 years old. This is Machina. You can see there's a lot of flowers growing between the vines. So this was taken in early spring, before the vines were really growing. And we leave as much of the wild herbs and flowers growing as we possibly can until it's the summertime, and then it gets too dry and hot and we have to cultivate that. We practice organic viticulture, and so that means that in the vineyards we don't use any chemical fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides. We're in such a beautiful climate that we can practice organic viticulture with not so much difficulty. Gunther and Klaus got their organic certification in 1997. So they were one of the first in Sicily to really pioneer organic viticulture. And this was before it became really even known what it meant and what it was. And now it's something that everyone is looking more and more for, and it's becoming, we're realizing the importance of not using chemicals in the soils, and that does end up coming into the things we eat and drink. So you can see there that it's a really, really healthy environment. There's no chemicals used whatsoever, not in the vineyards, and then also in the winemaking. We follow the organic protocol for winemaking, so we're not using additives in the wines in any form. We try to really respect our territory and what the vineyards give us, and really express those flavors in the wines. So here we're at the Paradiso vineyard, and that was the first vineyard in the photo. And this is Paradiso as well. You can see there the altitude is a medium elevation. And here's a view of the mountainside vineyards in Sambuca di Sicilia. Sambuca is in the province of Agrigento. And so about a little over an hour from Palermo. If you ever come to Sicily, we'd love to have you all here. You can see here that we're in the mountains. So these vineyards surround the wine cellar. And here we're at about 650 meters above sea level, and the vines go up until 850 meters. So we're here at about the same altitude as many of the Cru vineyards on Etna. And this altitude is really important for quality viticulture. Of course, yields are much lower. The soil is not fertile at all. And we have extreme temperature changes between daytime and nighttime. And this really gives us a much longer growing season. We're usually picking the grapes from these vineyards here mid to late September into early October. And this is a nice view of the same vineyard, San Giacomo, because you can see the mountains behind there. And this is a nature reserve. It's a protected nature reserve called Monte Gennardo, and the wine cellar is just behind this vineyard. You can see here that the soil is much whiter. It has a lot of calcareous in it, stony soil as you go up towards the mountains. And the further up you go, the more rocky it becomes until it's just all white stones. So it's really, really a spectacular vineyard to see.
So, Melissa, could you tell us a little bit about the soil? Like you just said, calcareous soil here, and before that you said tough soil. How is it different from each other? What are the typical grapes that grow on calcareous soil? And what is Sicilian soil all about? Or is it dynamic in nature?
To be honest, it's really hard to generalize the soil. We can say that it's all volcanic based. So if the lower you go into the soil, what you'll find is volcanic matter. But there's a saying in Sicilian that the soil changes with the palm of the hand. So from one tiny zone to the next, the soil can completely change. And in fact, when we replanted the vineyards in the late 80s and 90s, we had an important agronomist come and do soil studies to see which varieties were best suited for the soil. Because we divided between 5 vineyards, we have really a lot of different soil types. So in the first 3 vineyards that we looked at in Contessa and Tolina, we can generalize by saying that the soil is mixed clay and volcanic tuff soil. And this zone tends to be more interesting for the red varieties like Nerella Mascalese, Neradavola, Syrah, also Merlot. But then on the parts of the vineyards where there's a higher component of calcareous stones, we have the white varieties planted. So really, we have the vineyards divided up in many, many parcels, which makes harvesting quite complicated, but the results are really interesting because we have a lot of different flavor profiles at the end from each of these plots of vineyards planted in different zones with different soils. And then as we go up and towards the mountains into this zone of Sambuca di Sicilia, where you see in the photos, you can see it's very white, and you can see actually in the mountains, the stones there. This was all really like at one time under the ocean. So there's, they've found marine sediment there, and there's a lot of white stony soil there. This is because of the soil, it's quite poor, and the elevation, the white varieties do better here. And we also have planted Neradavola vineyard that we use to make our rosé wine. It's not the best for the red varieties, but really the whites have a really aromatic and fresh mineral expression from these vineyards. Yeah, so this is a closer view of the vineyard there, Fumanello. You can see that the vines go right up to the mountains. And in these mountains, there's actually really, really ancient oak trees. And Sicily at one point was covered in forest. And then when the Romans came and Sicily became the major wheat producer for the Roman Empire. And so a lot of the forests were cleared, but this is one of those beautiful forests. There's many, many protected reserves and forests in Sicily, and this is one of them. And so there's a lot of wild animals here, and it's actually a protected park. So it's really just farmland, vineyards, and forests. It's really, really beautiful.
And sorry to interrupt there, Melissa. Is it not that Sicily has always been like the wheat bowl, or a bigger chunk of produce of vegetables and wheat and all the raw materials? A lot of it used to come from Sicily. I don't know whether it's still the same case. It was like I don't remember the correct phrase, but somebody told me that it was the food bowl of Italy. a lot of your raw materials, because it's such a huge island and it's so sunny and it's got perfect conditions. Is it still the same case apart from wines? Does it still provide that kind of raw material, that amount of raw material as far as food products are concerned for Italy?
I think so. I don't know exactly the acreage that's dedicated to agriculture, but there's a lot of biodiversity here and a lot of agricultural diversity. So table grapes, carrots, onions, of course, grapes, olives for table olives, but also for extra virgin olive oil. We have strawberry fields in Marsala. Of course, zucchini, tomatoes. I could go on and on.
The produce
figs,
is
of
wonderful.
course. Yeah, and everything is so flavorful. Really, the food here has just so much flavor. So yeah, it's I can't tell you exactly how many, but if you travel around Sicily, you'll see a lot of farmland.
I remember having those tomatoes, the yellow ones, and I think it was a salad, if I'm not forgetting it. And it's just it still lingers in my mouth even to this
yeah.
flavor.
Oh yeah,
If
it's
I'm
true.
not mistaken, Melissa, probably you could correct me. Sicily is also known the land of sun-dried tomatoes, from where the whole concept of sun-dried tomatoes came. And
Probably.
I think I read it somewhere.
Mm,
Wine and sun-dried tomato was the staple of Sicilians, and besides, like Kunal mentioned, besides the food and all, I think it's a hub of olives.
yes.
Yeah, it's like one of the most rarest and aged olives are also found in Sicily.
Yes, we have a lot of ancient olive trees here, a lot of ancient olive groves that are really, really beautiful. And the olive tree is incredible. It's green all year round, so it never loses its leaves. And it really gives the landscape a really incredible identity all year round. And it's the only fruit tree that produces more as it ages. So it is really an important part of the landscape here in Sicily is the olive tree.
So, like they say in in Italy, there's a very famous say. Would it hold true here as well? Especially, I think in Barolo, Piedmont region, it says that what grows together goes together. Hence, Barolo and truffles go very well. So, would it be safe to say that Sicilian wines like a Frappato or a Nero di Avola or a Mount Etna smoky wines go well with olives? Would it be safe? Would it be a safe bet?
I think so, yes. And a lot of sommeliers and winemakers here in Sicily say that you can find notes of olives in the Sicilian reds, like Nero d'Avola, for example, a typical tasting note that you can find also in Syrah that grows in Sicily is olive notes, and even anchovy. So this kind of like savory, salty, umami flavor, you could say. Okay, so we can move on to the wines. We have a very pretty broad range of wines that we make. If you ever visit the wine cellar, it's divided onto two different floors. So the first floor is the vinification floor, where we have all of our stainless steel tanks. We have 52 stainless steel tanks. They're all temperature controlled. And we have so many tanks at all different sizes because, as I mentioned before, we have many different plots planted with many different grape varieties, and each grape is picked as it's ripe, and so we vinify each grape separately. And then once it's vinified, we taste all of the wines in the tank, and we decide how we're going to make the blends into our 10 wines. So we make 4 white wines, 2 rosé wines, and 4 red wines. And I think the first wine that we could talk about would be this wine here, the Gerbino Bianco. So you can see it on the sheet here, and I have a bottle here with me. This Gerbino is the name of the oldest family vineyard, and here this is a blend. It's an unoaked blend. Chardonnay is the base, and then we blend in 15% Grillo and 15% Viognier. And so each grape is vinified separately. We destem all of our grapes; they're all hand-picked, and the whites are direct pressed. So they're destemmed and they go into the pneumatic press. We are just taking out what they say in Italian is the primo fiore. It's the first flower of the juice. It's very aromatic, fresh and clear juice. And then the must goes into the tank and it will start the fermentation usually by the next day. And so this is a really lovely everyday white wine. It has a really nice fresh character, and it's full of aromatics from wildflowers, citrus notes to stone fruits. And for us, this is our everyday white wine.
And one of the reason I asked Melissa if she could, a few wines that we had chosen, if she could talk about her the estate's wine. One of the reasons this was because it has a grape called Grillo, which most people must not have heard of. Chardonnay is, of course, everybody knows Chardonnay. Viognier
Yes.
also quite a bit, but Grillo is very typical of that region. Melissa, would you? I'm not sure about this. This is a question from my end. Are wines made by 100% Grillo over there?
Yes. In fact, the next white wine that we'll talk about is made from 100% Grillo. We make two wines that are made from 100% Grillo. This is our entry-level blend, and it has just 15% Grillo in it. So Grillo is the typical white grape of Western Sicily. You find it mostly planted in the province of Trapani. And Grillo has a really, really long history in Sicily. It's a cross actually between two other Sicilian grapes, Catarratto and Zavibo. So these two grapes were crossed to make Grillo, and Grillo has been used to make the highest quality Marsala wines. And the English actually started the Marsala culture, exporting the wines made in Marsala to England. And the most important grape was the Grillo grape. And now, of course, the Grillo has been planted through the area of Palermo a little bit, and then going down through Agrigento. But it's most typical to the western side of Sicily, where we have a particular soil that's a little bit more sandy as you go down towards Trapani, and where we are that has a lot of limestone and calcareous components into it. And so when Grillo started to first be made, it was usually blended with other grapes. And then a lot of winemakers decided to just really lower the yields in the vineyards and focus on quality viticulture to make a high quality Grillo. And the results are really, really interesting. It is a grape that can age, a white grape that can age pretty well. And it has a lot of really, really nice and unique tasting notes, like wildflowers, a lot of citrus notes ranging from lemon to orange to tropical fruit notes like pineapple. And it has this really nice kind of waxy texture on the palate, and it has quite a nice savory element and a minerality. So you could pair it with a lot of even some spicy dishes. I think there's some Indian dishes that would be absolutely perfect for Grillo. And then of course it pairs really, really well with shellfish and lighter white seafood dishes.
Yeah, it has a completely different expression, this grape in Sicily, because I remember tasting this somewhere from mainland Italy. I think maybe Campania, or I don't remember exactly. But when I tasted this in Sicily, it is the expression that this grape gives in gives in Sicily is completely different, and it just comes, it just completely it takes your mind away. It blows off your mind, because that minerality that you just spoke about, is so evident in Grillo, especially that which comes from which comes from Sicily. It is rather different from if you I'm not sure where I tasted that, but maybe it was from southern Italy itself, not Sicily. But that bottle of Grillo did not impress me much. But that that comes from mainland, comes from Sicily, is completely different, and that's why it's one of my favorite grapes. And incidentally, not a lot of people know about it outside Sicily, and especially outside Italy. But it's something, if you get your hands on a bottle of Grillo, it's definitely a try for sure.
We do have one company, one vineyard in India which makes Grillo. It's a decent wine. For all the people who are interested to know what are these guys talking about, we have a wine in India which produces Grillo grape. Go ahead, try. It's a decent version, and I think it's a great wine. And I like what Melissa said, that it's a great everyday drinking wine. Goes very well with on its own and as an aperitif and a main meal wine. I think it's got some decent amount of fruit, decent amount of acidity. It's quite an interesting and a refreshing wine.
Yeah, for us, this is what everyone in Sicily drinks in the summer. It's an amazing summer white wine. So yeah, the next one, if you want to scroll down to this one, this is the example of 100% Grillo. Vorria.
Yeah, that's the one. That's 100% Grillo.
Yes. Yeah. So Vorria is Sicilian for vorrei. Sicily has its own language, and it's a word that expresses to desire and to wish for something. And it's the name of our line of native Sicilian grape varieties. So this is 100% Grillo. It's a pure expression of Grillo, completely unoaked. So here we're really emphasizing all of the aromatics that you find in the Grillo grape and the freshness that you find on the palate.
Yes, and I don't know how many of you noticed, but the last one was an IGT wine, and this one is a DOC Sicily,
Yes.
Sicilia, sorry.
Yeah. So the DOC Sicily has included Grillo as the white grape and Nardavola as the red grape. And so if you're making either Grillo or Nardavola in Sicily, it has to be DOC. So that's something just to look out for when you're looking for either a Grillo or a Nardavola. They should always be DOC. And that was an attempt to really, kind of build a brand and awareness around quality Grillo and quality Nardavola, and to actually help Sicilian producers that are actually growing and making Grillo and Nardavola and bottling it in Sicily.
For last few years, it's shown quite a bit of a revival. Grillo has.
Yeah, it's starting to become one of the known white grapes of Italy. And so if you're looking for a Pinot Grigio alternative, I think Grillo could be a nice one. Okay, so then we can move on to the Nerello Mascalese, which has a really, really unique story.
Which is this one on your screen now, Nerello Mascalese.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is another native Sicilian grape. You'll only find this grape planted in Sicily, and the grape is typical to the area of Etna. And it's been cultivated there for forever. And the story of how it made its way to our area in Sambuca is interesting. My father-in-law actually in a series of meetings with winemakers from other parts of Italy. They were doing blind tastings. This was in the 60s. And he had got a bottle of Nerello Mascalese from Etna, and they blind tasted it. And this winemaker who was consulting at the time, he was from Piedmont, said, whatever this grape is, it has incredible potential. And you should plant some here because of your elevation and the soil here. And I think he thought it could give really, really interesting results. So they got the vine cuttings from Etna and brought them here to Sambuca and planted a small amount. And so we've been working with this grape for over 50 years now here. And Sambuca is the second zone planted for Nerello Mascalese after Etna. And now we have about over 5 hectares of Nerello Mascalese. Half of it is dedicated to making a rosé wine. And the other half is dedicated to making the Voria, Nerello Mascalese that I just showed you. It's a lot of sommeliers will call this the Pinot Noir of Southern Italy because it does have some similarities to Pinot Noir. It has more red fruit, medium body, quite high acidity, and it has these really, really intense, fine, almost chalky tannins that make it an excellent food wine and give it a great aging potential. So it's one of those grapes that is quite particular because it has some, it is quite acidic and it can seem almost astringent. It kind of lacks in color. And it has almost these notes of orange peel, pomegranate, but a lot of these notes are what makes this grape so unique. So here we have the Nerello Mascalese in 3 different plots in Contessa and Tolina, the Paradiso vineyard. And the soil here is the volcanic tuff soil. So this is the perfect soil for Nerello Mascalese. It needs this type of poor volcanic soil with a lot of, that drains very well, like also similar to what is on Etna, and also likes elevation. This is also the last grape to be picked at the winery. We're usually harvesting within the first week of October, which is quite late for this part of Sicily.
Sorry, last week of October?
No, the first week.
First week of October. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are my parents-in-law in the photo there. And so we'll move on to the last 2 wines, the Elios wines, and these are flagship wines. So these mean a lot to us and our family, and they're named Elios after Gunther and Klaus's father, Aurelio. Elio is the Greek god of sun, and so it's also a mention to the Greek history that we have here in Sicily. And so these 2 wines are made only on select vintages when we have an excellent vintage, and we're confident to be able to make these wines and the vintages that have age worthiness to them. And the Elios Grillo is made from 100% Grillo. And this is a white wine that is so structured and so complex that it really shows itself better after at least 6 months in the bottle. So we release this white wine usually 1 year later. The current vintage is 2019. And that's because it really has so much character to it, that it expresses itself much, much later. And it's also a white wine that for us can age very well. So we're using a selection of our best Grillo grapes. 10% is barrel fermented in the tonneau, and then the rest in stainless steel. We leave it on the fine lees for about 9 months. And then we'll bottle it and age it in the bottle for usually about 6 months before we release the wine. And this is a small production. We usually make about 6,000 bottles.
And guys, please note, there are quite a few things very impressive. This wine, I mean, I've not tasted it, but by the looks of it, as Melissa, obviously, one of the things that is mentioned here is high altitude old wine Rio. So, guys, any grapes that come from old wines, that's the old plants, generally give out better fruit. They give out lesser. The yield is less, but the quality of the grapes are much better. And the second important thing to note here, which Melissa mentioned, is that just the production is only 6,000 bottles, which is quite less. Okay, so you can imagine,
Actually,
because
very, very less.
yes, absolutely,
We could finish
6,000 bottles.
it.
Yeah, both of us can do it easily. Polish it off, man. No worries. Uh, yeah, okay. Jokes apart. So old. This shows you because the production is so low. Because of the fact that the old wines are only giving you a little bit of the grapes produced. The production is very less, but the quality is much better. And then on top of it, as I mentioned, it has been in an interaction with leaf, which gives it more body and gives it certain aromas which leaves provide. So all in all, this looks very impressive. I love to have my hands on this bottle.
We'll try to get you some. And then moving on to the last red. This is Elios Rosso. Sorry about that. I got a call there. So this is our flagship blend of Nero d'Avola, another native Sicilian grape, and Syrah. Syrah has a very long history in Sicily, particularly in the western area of Sicily around Palermo. And it blends very, very well with Nero d'Avola. So Nero d'Avola is considered the king of Sicilian red grapes. You can find it planted all along the island, and there are many, many different flavors, styles, and quality levels of Nero d'Avola. And here our attempt was to really show what Nero d'Avola can be in a really, really elegant and age-worthy style. So it's, again, quite aromatic. I'd have to say all of our wines really emphasize the aromatic profile and also fruit. But then this wine has a lot of other interesting characters like sweet spice and those olive notes that we were talking about, maybe some a little bit of pepperiness. The spice comes in at the end, which is really nice, and a lot of dark berry fruits. So the Nero d'Avola for us and the Syrah complement each other very well. This is 70% Nero d'Avola and 30% Syrah, and this is the 2016 vintage because we'll age this in the bottle for 1 year before we release it. And again, this wine is just made on our better vintages. For example, the next vintage that we'll be releasing of this wine when the 2016 is sold out is the 2019, because we did not make the 17 or 18 Elios, because 17 was a quite high yielding year and the 18 was quite rainy and not one of our better vintages. So we just skipped the wine when we're not 100% secure of the quality and the aging potential. And so we're really, really excited to be bottling soon the 19, and then we'll be releasing that for next year.
And again, very less production, 6,000 bottles again. And wines over 30 years old. So again, guys, I remember, please, wines which are older produce better quality fruit. They produce less fruit, but the quality of the fruit is much better. Okay, as if a wine is younger, it produces more grape, but the quality is not as good. But the older it gets, the better quality grapes it produces. But at the same time, reducing the amount of grapes every single year. Kriti, quite frankly, I think Nero d'Avola plus Syrah is an absolute bomb for a country like India, because this will go very well with spicy food. You know, our
yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll just stop sharing here, guys. We are ready to take any questions if you have. Kriti, you can go ahead and take questions, Q&A if we have.
Sure. I think, Melissa, we've got so many questions.
Okay. I hope I can answer them for you all.
Absolutely. So first question is, I see a lot of flowers surrounding a vineyard. Does these flowers also add flavor to the grapes? Just like honey gets flavors from where the beehive is formed, like orange tree honeys have flavors of orange in the honey.
Well,
Yes, that's
it's,
the question.
yeah, we think so. It's really hard to prove it. But like you were saying, is what grows together stays together and pairs well together. So, you know, a lot of the foods that and the agriculture that's grown in Sicily, you can find those similar notes in the wines. And one of the interesting things about our white wines is this kind of notes of wild flowers and wild herbs, even this note of fennel. And there's wild fennel, wild herbs, and flowers growing all around the vineyard. So we think it does influence the flavor of the wine.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a very interesting question. A lot of people are interested to know, Melissa, about Mount Etna, like the fact that do the ash of volcano affect the organic grape production, and to what extent does the volcanic soil help in organic viticulture?
It's quite funny. Before we started this webinar, I asked Melissa the exact same question that we'll be getting questions on Mount Etna and, you know, the entire mystery that surrounds Mount Etna. So
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, we're pretty far away from Mount Etna. We can't see it from where we are, and we're safe. So if it erupts, we're not going to have any problems over where we are. But there are a lot of amazing winemakers around Etna, and I think their grapes and their viticulture can be affected by eruptions. And there was recently one, and the air is quite cloudy right now. And I think that could settle on the grapes, but of course, you know, if it rains, and that will wash away. We don't have any vineyards on Etna, and I don't go there often enough to be able to say firsthand exactly how that would affect the winemakers there. But I think it could. It's a constant risk, an eruption and lava. They're actually close enough to the volcano that it could be covered in lava. The vineyards could be covered in lava. And then you have the question about organic viticulture. So it has a lot to do with the amount of sunshine, the dry climate. Really, to be able to be organic, you want a climate that's dry. You don't want humidity, because once you have humidity, you have a disease that comes in, and with organic viticulture, it's very difficult to treat disease. What you're doing is you're just working to prevent it. And another really important factor is the wind. So all of Sicily is very, very windy. And particularly on the western side, along the coast, the area of Trapani is very, very extremely windy. And this is really important because it keeps the air moving between the vines, and you don't have air and humidity trapped on the grapes or on the leaves in the vines. And so the wind helps to really just keep everything clean. Then the altitude helps to keep pests away. So we don't really have problems with pests like in some other winemaking.
Melissa, please go on.
The answer about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you there for a while. Yeah, please.
Okay, So yeah, I was saying that another important factor for the organic viticulture is the wind, and all the island is is quite windy, and so that helps to keep the air moving between the vines and between the grape clusters, and it helps keep the vines and the grapes disease free.
Absolutely. Next question is from Saurav. He says, as you said, Melissa, that Sicily is having the sunny all the time and also have dry climate in nature. Does this affect the plants of grape? Because he says, sunny climate, the plants may burn. I think we've lost Melissa.
I think there's.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. You're back. You're back.
Okay, sorry about that. So yes, there is a risk in some summers that you could have grapes that burn and raisinate. One thing you can do is you can keep a little more coverage of the vines over the grapes. So in some parts of, in some winemaking areas, for example, in France, where the climate can be quite cooler and they have much less sun exposure, what they're trying to do is have the grapes exposed to the sun as much as possible, where in Sicily, we don't have this problem. So we don't necessarily want the grapes to be completely exposed. We want a certain amount of coverage over the grapes where they're not completely exposed to the sun. We don't have this problem of extreme heat every year, but some summers we do have it. And so that means we just have to work in the vineyards accordingly and not take away so many leaves and not leave the grape clusters so exposed to the sun.
Yes, absolutely. I think this question has come to us in all sessions that we've done, and it must have been asked you hundreds of times. How has the COVID-19 going in 2021 pandemic affected the viticulture of Sicily? I'm not sure about viticulture, but could we say about sales? We could definitely talk about the sales.
Exactly. So if you are in agriculture and you're growing something, you were able to continue working throughout the whole time since COVID started last March here. And so we've been able to be open the whole time. We of course worked in safety, and the wine cellar is pretty spacious. So we all are working, with a good distance between ourselves. We weren't really able to have hospitality so much, except for a few months in the summer. But as far as the viticulture, we've been dedicated more than ever to the vineyards because we haven't been traveling. So normally we kind of wear a lot of hats because we're a family winery and we're traveling a good part of the year, meeting our clients, promoting the wines, going to the trade shows. And so last year we've been here, we haven't moved at all. And so we've been in the vineyards really, really a lot. And doing a lot of cleanup, a lot of management, maintenance of the vineyards, and a lot of work. And the 2020 vintage was one of our best vintages. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So as I was saying, we're really looking forward to introducing the new 2020 vintage, which was amazing this year. So we're positive for the year, thanks to an amazing vintage. But, a lot of our clients in different countries in the world are partially closed or not, or currently closed. And we're just really hoping, like everybody else in the world, that the vaccine schedule moves quickly, and that the more people can be vaccinated as quickly as possible, the sooner we can get back to a somewhat normal life. We're sure things will change forever. A lot of things are moving online and they'll stay online. And, but nothing can replace that physical meeting of people and that contact. And, we're working on building a tasting room because
We lost you again, Melissa. But I think what she's trying to say is that they do a lot of tastings, and 2021 is seeming to be a very, very good year for them. Let's keep our fingers crossed. In terms of viticulture and winemaking, I don't see there was any
No.
of COVID. Having said that, there was, of course, there was a lot of effect on the sales, but hopefully that should pick up again, is what I've gauged from what Melissa's saying.
Yes, that's what I said. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
that's
I
what
don't
she
know what's
said.
happened with the internet right now.
That's so
Yeah, we're building a tasting room, and so we're really hoping and praying and and faithful that things will go back to normal. People will be able to start traveling again, and we'll be able to introduce people personally to our wines, either through market visits or welcoming people to the winery.
bravo. We've got another question, which is, as the climate being dry, how do you take care of irrigation? And do you considerably cut short it as soon as the versions start to concentrate the minerality?
That's a great question. So in France, you probably know that irrigation is is illegal because they have enough rainfall that allows them to manage their viticulture in a way that they don't really need to irrigate. Of course, there are for sure years where that's not the case. But in Italy, irrigation is legal, and in Sicily, we have an irrigation system in place, and we like to explain it as like an insurance. And it's an insurance on the years when we don't get enough rainfall. And in order to not have our grapes raisinate, we drip irrigate at night. This is usually during the month of June. And then in July and August, there's enough moisture in the soil that the vine draws from that. And we don't get too much water in the grape before the harvest time. So we, generally speaking, we use some irrigation on the white varietals. On the red, they are dry farmed, so we don't irrigate them unless, of course, we have an extremely hot summer, an extremely hot, dry wave of heat, and we could risk to lose the quality of the grapes.
Sure. Great. I think we've got just probably one very interesting question. And I'm keen to know the answer of that myself personally. Do you plan weddings in your vineyards?
We have not had one yet, but we would love to have one.
You could always choose one of us as your bait.
Okay.
You can do all your experiments on us. Feel free to call me.
Okay.
I'll be happy to give
You've come to the right place, Melissa, for themed weddings.
Yeah.
No place like India.
Yeah,
Yes.
I saw some movies with they look amazing.
That's the new trend that the creme de la creme of India are indulging in. Marriages in the vineyards of Europe. So maybe we'll get you some. Great.
Okay. That would be fun.
So Melissa, probably just one question I have. There's this especially in Sicily, there's this concept of the word Q, which is written on highly graded food and wine. Can you tell us a bit on that?
Well, we don't have it on our wines. We have just we have this certification. This is the organic certification. You'll find this on all European or certified organic products.
Okay.
And for us, this is our quality control. But I think the Q symbol is probably another certification of a quality control.
Okay.
For made in Italy products. That could be wines, but it could be also food products. And
Yes,
that's important because, in Italy, there's a problem with food fraud because the made in Italy brand is so important in the world, and Italian products. I think it's another way for Italians to certify the authenticity of their products.
Yes. One more question I've got on my personal chat. Ma'am, can you tell us the difference between Well, it's out of syllabus question, but I'll still read out. The
Okay.
difference between extra virgin oil, olive oil, and the regular olive oil.
Yes. Regular olive oil is, of course, made from pressed olives, but with regular olive oil, you don't have to mill the olives and make them into olive oil the same day that you pick them. Whereas if you're extra virgin, you have to pick them in the morning and mill them by that same day. So you're picking every day and you're taking the olives as quickly as possible to the mill and you're transforming them into olive oil the same day that they're picked. Then with regular olive oil, as the olives are milling in the centrifuge, you can heat the temperature up. And with extra virgin, you cannot raise the temperature. When you raise the temperature during the milling process, you have a lot more extraction of oil, but you're losing a lot of the healthy minerals and vitamins that are in the oil. A lot of the naturally healthy components of the olive oil are essentially being cooked. And so extra virgin olive oil, you have to keep the temperature at an ambient cool temperature, and you cannot raise it. And so you're getting much, much less oil out of the olive.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the last factor for extra virgin olive oil versus regular olive oil is the acidity level. So our olive oil, in order to have the qualification as extra virgin, it has to have a certain very low acidity level, and we have to certify that acidity level in order to be qualified as extra virgin. And so for olive oil, a low acidity level is actually a sign of a very high quality oil.
Yeah, yeah. When somebody asks me how I explain the differences, extra virgin olive oil is the first press, and this is subtle, delicate, soft nuances, very aromatic, very flavorful, as compared to the second or the third or the last press, which is the
Exactly.
yeah, perfect.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, bravo. Kunal, all to you.
Melissa, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
There's a small island halfway from Sicily to Africa, which is called Pantelleria. And I was fortunate enough to taste the wines of Pantelleria in Sicily from a producer. Which were the sweet wines and which are made in completely unique way, which I did not know about it at all. And they were, of course, by all means, they were excellent. Do you guys do that or not? Or are there only few producers in Sicily who have vineyards in Pantelleria?
Yes, normally there are many producers that only make wine on Pantelleria, but there are also other producers that are based in Trapani, the Marsala area. So, it's quite easy to get on the boat and go out to Pantelleria. And they're making their wines from Pantelleria in Trapani, Marsala. So they'll have vineyards in Trapani, and then they'll have some vineyards in Palermo on Pantelleria as well. The grape there is Zabibo, so the father or mother, as you can say, of the Grillo grape, and it's a perfect climate for making this sweet wine.
Muscat of Alexandria. That's
exactly.
The same, yeah.
Yes, it's the same. Yeah, Moscato. And so this is the grape that makes these excellent dessert wines. And we don't have the tradition of this dessert wine in our area, so we kind of just stick to. Aside from the Nerella Mascalese, we stick to the grapes that are traditional and the winemaking style that is traditional to our territory.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Right. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, maybe perhaps one. What is the taste of the Gerbino Bianco wine?
Well, it's quite aromatic, and I find some white floral notes, some citrus notes like orange, and maybe a little bit of lemon peel, and then some stone fruits like pear and maybe some apricot notes. On the palate, it's quite soft and but then also fresh because it's completely unoaked, so it has a really, really nice freshness and easiness to it.
Wow, this sounds so appealing.
Mm.
I mean, feel free to send some bottles.
Okay, we'd like to. We'll send you some.
Yeah.
All right, guys, if there aren't any questions, then I would like, first of all, to thank Melissa for taking out the time for addressing our huge nation and the audience. We are
Thank you.
also, thank you so much, Melissa. We are also live on Facebook. So in case any of your friends missed it, please do let them know. It's on Facebook. It's always going to be on stay on Facebook, so they can always refer back. The reason is pretty simple, guys. We see the thing what Melissa brought to the platform. Some producer would not be. The reason being that to me, my heart is very close to the family-owned producers because they have their own personality that goes into the wine itself. It's like let's say I have to buy a furniture. I can go to IKEA or I can get it handcrafted. So
Yeah.
this is the handcrafted version of wine. So really the expression of the producer, the family, the history, the generation, everything is goes in the wine. So that's what makes the family owned businesses like the Giovanna special compared to the bigger producers. Not that there's anything wrong in that, but it's special because the production, of course, is little less. It is made with the sole purpose of pleasing the customer, making a bigger base, and giving out your best every single day, because that's your own blood and sweat literally that goes in the vineyards. And that's why Melissa has put it in such a wonderful way throughout this almost touching 1.5 hours now. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for
Thank you.
our
It was nice to meet you
time
all.
thank you so much, and I hope to see your wines very soon in India as well, because I think it should be in India, and I'll talk to you separately someday. We'll connect
Sure.
on that, which I mentioned you the last time, and let's see. Really would like to see your wines here in India.
That would be great.
Yes, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. Again, it's our endeavor to always keep, making, helping our fraternity and getting, the people like Melissa, so that the knowledge of various parts of the world is delivered to you guys, and I think it's extremely important in the country with a huge potential that like India. So thank you so much again for joining. Thank you, Kriti, my co-host, for again bearing with me and hearing my tantrums. Thank you, Kriti. So signing off, if we are from Grape Expectations, we are WSET level 1 and level 2 approved program providers, and we're doing level 1 and level 2 in classroom sessions now from next month, because we were doing online because of the COVID and all, but I think it really appeals when it's classroom. For your certificate of participations, do mail me and I'll issue them. Apart from that, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you so much, Melissa, once again for joining and taking up the time. Do give my regards to the entire family and to your husband, of course.
Thank you.
And to the entire team.
Thank you. And you're all welcome to visit us in Sicily next time you're all here.
Yes, I will
Open
come.
invitation.
Yes, I will come to your tasting room for sure. I want to see that
Great.
tasting room.
Okay. Thank you.
We're definitely coming as soon as Europe opens. I hope they open soon.
Okay.
Yes, and thank you once again, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been
Kunal,
great.
once again, great work done by yourself and myself, being very humble about that. No, and thank you, everyone. Excellent questions, very intelligent questions.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We'll be coming up with more and more sessions like these. Stay positive mentally, but not physically. Thank you.
Of course. Keep up the great work. And
Yes.
thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Melissa. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.